Hello everyone, and let's talk about the proposed 3.2.1 healer changes have apparently been postponed. They haven't been cancelled outright, but they are re-evaluating the healer changes. So they couldn't present all the healer changes, of course, to us, and for me that felt broken. All the healers felt broken on the PTS in 3.2.1. Because they never really implemented everything. I mean, the biggest change, of course, came to the Sage. Sage healers, which I don't think you can really do that in the middle of an expansion, to be honest with you. You can't make a massive fundamental change to a class in the middle of an expansion. I think it's very poor game design. They should have either wait for 4.0 to make this big a change, or at least have done it in 3.0. But definitely you do not want to be changing the way we play. You see, if you change it at the start of an expansion, what happens is we have a buffer zone. We have leveling, which acts as a buffer for us to get used to the changes. You know, if you look at 3.0, most of us got new abilities at level 57. So we've got 3 levels, or 2 levels, I guess. No, 2 or 3 levels. You've got a couple of levels anyway to get used to your new ability. You know, you've got a few levels to see how it plays, see how it integrates, while doing things like trash mobs. You know, you're doing like most quests just have trash mobs, maybe the odd elite enemy. But again, you've got the old level 55 HMs and the old new level 60 tacticals to test out in. But you have that little buffer zone there. That's why increasing the level cap is one of the reasons why it's a good idea, because it gives you that time to get ready for endgame, whereas now we're in the middle of an expansion, so we're in the middle of doing end content. So the only place we can test this, if we're doing progression operations, you know, we'll be just going into HM ops with some new healing abilities, and it's going to be difficult. It was going to be too much of a learning curve, I think, for a lot of Sages in particular. The Scoundrels wasn't a huge change, but it was a slight nerf to our kind of HOTS. The only making the 1 stack, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't too bad. The mercenaries and commandos, they didn't really get a huge change. The biggest change to them was more to the DPS mercs and the commandos rather than the healers. But yeah, it was always going to be, particularly for the Sage, it was going to hit the Sage really, really hard. You know, it was quite difficult. Things like Salvation just was not worth casting anymore. It just was too expensive, it did too little healing, and nobody stood in the pool for long enough to get the full benefit of it, so it wasn't worth it. Also, our mobility was hugely nerfed, because Noble Sacrifice had a 1.5 second cast time, and we could not move. So we had a choice, either we move, or we have no force regen. You know, if we move, we have no force regen, or we stand there, potentially getting hit, and have to sit there and spam Noble Sacrifice, either on an ally. Now, the healing numbers for Noble Sacrifice were a joke. I don't think they were implemented properly at all. You know, it was 200 healing. 200 healing at level 60. That's fully trained. 200 healing. That's what it was giving you. It did 200 damage as well to a target if you casted it on an enemy. Also, it did require a target, so you couldn't just cast it on yourself as well. So you had to target something, which was really annoying. It was always really annoying if you're going to target an enemy. You end up just targeting the tank and spamming it on the tank. It was quite annoying. It did require quite a huge kind of skill increase in order to play a Sage right now. I mean, right now playing a Sage, it's not the hardest of healers to play. I don't think it is anyway. Certainly to get good healing out of it, it does require a bit of skill, a bit of knowledge. You got to take advantage of things, take advantage of procs, etc. And you know, you get things to proc like your instant cast, instant cast benevolence and things like that. If you can take advantage of them, your force doesn't really matter at the moment. And you know, they wanted to make force regen matter. They wanted to give us a bit more burst healing. They did want to kind of rein in our HPS a little bit and balance HPS with resource management, which should be as part of a healer. We should be managing our resources. It should be part of being a healer, you know. But again, the problem is that we're going to do pug groups, and you know, pug groups, they make mistakes. And as a healer, we can cover mistakes. That's one of the things that we kind of do as a healer. You can cover a mistake. You know, sometimes you see it in operations where the tank will die and we've had to pop our cooldowns because some DPS has stood in something stupid. Sometimes we have to do that. We have to do that. Sometimes maybe it's not worth healing them, but it's like, I'm gonna have to pop a cooldown here just to heal this DPS because he's done, you know, just they've done something stupid, or maybe a tank makes a mistake, or maybe, you know, sometimes things happen, unpredictable things happen in pug groups. We could not do that as a Sage. You had to kind of be with a guild, and for me, this game, SWTOR is getting less and less like an MMO every single day. It's becoming more of a just like a sort of friendly social club type thing rather than a massively multiplayer online game. Well, the massively part, it's becoming more and more narrower. The field is just getting narrower, I feel, and it's like, yeah, play with a guild or don't play or play solo seems to be the choice these days, because they seem to be very much against pug groups for some reason. They seem to make very pug unfriendly mechanics. And, you know, throwing ultimate comms at the problem in 3.2, it's not going to solve it. It's not going to solve it. The 190 gear maybe go a little way to solving it, but, you know, bad players are going to be bad regardless of their gear. You know, if you know, people stand and stuff, people, you know, attack, the DPS still attack the mob that's CC'd. In 2.0 we could kind of get away with this because we had, you know, were way over geared. And, you know, the healing output was ridiculous, and the damage output was ridiculous as well. Again, as a DPS, we could kill trash. I mean, as a healer, sorry, we could kill trash. You know, we could DPS down trash as a healer. That was kind of ridiculous, the fact that we were killing most of the weaker enemies. Now we don't really have the damage to do that because the damage was nerfed in 3.0. We don't have that, so we're relying more and more on things like stuns. Jesus, an operative. The amount of times I'm stunning things, I mean, that's why I just like playing my operative a lot as a healer, because I can just stun things now. And then in the end I have to go and take care of a lot of things as an operative healer, because, you know, DPS should be doing this. We think, you know, kill order, basic kill order. I think what they need to do with this game, we need to do something similar to what World of Warcraft does. They always harp on about World of Warcraft. People tell me, go play WoW if you think it's so damn great. But, you know, when they do something right, we should emulate it. Because if they get something right, if Blizzard are doing something right, why shouldn't we emulate it? Why don't we want to compete? You know, bear in mind that this was launched as a WoW killer. It is a bit of a WoW clone, you could argue, but those days are gone of this being a WoW killer, by the way. But if we're going to do, you know, if we're going to look at what WoW does and what WoW is successful at, we should introduce things. I'm talking about proving grounds. Now, if World of Warcraft, if you want to queue for a heroic dungeon at level 100, you have to have a silver medal in the proving grounds. Now, the proving grounds it's kind of like a solo instance that you go into. You pick what role you want to do. You've got the tank, healer, DPS role. Essentially what it does is it teaches you how to play that role. You would put into a group of NPCs if you're a healer or a tank, and your task is going to be to keep those protect those NPCs from harm, or keep those NPCs alive. Now, they do set you several things. There's things like cleanses, there's things like burst healing phases, there's enemies that require interrupting, you know, they do big AoE damage. There's DPS that make mistakes. They put that in. They've got like a DPS that stands in the fire. It's a pretty good idea. I think it's a good idea for SWTOR, because we get a lot of people who get to end game, and leveling with the 12 times XP is a very, very poor method of preparing you for end game. I like the old style of leveling better, because we had certain solo bosses that you had to do where, for example, the Jedi Knight had a few. There was the one that was like on Coruscant. It was the final boss on Coruscant, where you had to use your defensive cooldown or you die as a Jedi Knight if you're a Sentinel or a Guardian. It was pretty interesting because they had fights that had mechanics that had to be countered. There was a boss later on at like level 24 or something like that before you went to Tatooine that needed to be interrupted, otherwise it would kill you. I liked that because it kind of taught you how to play your class. Nowadays, of course, with the 12 times XP buff, which is going live today, May the 4th, I'm recording this. Video won't go up for a few days, but I'm recording this on May the 4th anyway, so yeah, it's going to be, You know, now you'll arrive at that boss maybe level 20, 21. You won't need a defensive cooldown, you just burn through it easily. You know, you'll be a few levels higher. Even with XP boosts and, you know, 12 times XP, double XP weekends. We're just arriving at arriving at points, you know, points that are going to test us. They're going to be tests. Essentially think of them as tests. But we're arriving at them 3 or 4 levels higher. So we're not getting that test, and maybe that's something they should look at in future, but certainly they don't seem to care about leveling anymore. 12 times XP is evident of that. I want to rush everyone to endgame where the content is lacking. I don't get that. I don't get that, because I think they should put more development into endgame. If you're going to get us all to endgame really, really fast, put endgame content in. You know, it makes sense. Get some end content in that, you know, is doable. We need better end content. People say, do we need more end content? I say no. I say we need better end content. You know, we need better. Ziost is interesting, although the new area is just a daily area. Yeah, we waited a week to get a fucking daily area. Awesome, really. That was it. Wait a week for a daily area and a boss, which seems to have circles again. The next person, I'm going to say the next person at BioWare, the next designer that suggests a boss with circles you have to move out of, fire them, okay? Fire them next time, because this fucking one-trick pony that we're seeing lately, we've seen it a lot in 3.0. I miss the innovative bosses. What happened to all the innovative bosses? You know, like Operator, you know, Operator 9, there was the Infernal Council in EV. That was an interesting concept for a boss, essentially a solo fight. In a raid, which was quite cool. You had the Rancor in Karaga's Palace that had no aggro table. That was interesting as well. The droid that had the puzzle again in KP. You had the minefield, which was awesome. What happened to these innovative boss fights? Olok the Shadow, you could argue, was kind of different as well. 3.0, it's just move out of circles. Don't stand in circles. Don't stand in fire. What's happened to the creative team at BioWare that they've done? You know, this has turned into a SWTOR rant. It was a 3.2.1 video, and now it's turned into a sort of general rant. But yeah, what's happened to that? I don't know what's happened to them. I mean, we seem to be just going backwards in terms of game design rather than forwards. The operations from Vanilla and Rise of the Hutt Cartel are way better. Dread Palace, I guess, was the start of this. There wasn't very many interesting bosses in Dread Palace. Raptus was kind of interesting with the curses and the DPS and healing challenge. The tank one wasn't really a challenge. You just stood there and got hit. If you were a guardian, you just popped in rage defense and it just healed you. That was what happened. Yeah, pop in rage defense, let the thing heal you. Essentially, that's all you did. Is that one? But yeah, I just don't think that we've really gone backwards. It's just move out of circles now. You know, Underlurker is just kill ads and stand in something, which is broken half the time. You know, Sword Squadron, circles again, move out of circles, move away from the group when you have a circle. Get rid of fucking circles, at least make them squares or something, or, you know, triangles. That would be interesting. It would be a bit less obscure to try and get out of. But again, in the latest bonus, the latest world boss, the raid boss on Ziost, I had a few attempts at it, didn't really know the tactics, kind of wiped a couple of times in a pug, but again, it has fucking circles on the ground, grey circles on a grey background. Great idea, great idea. I guess we'll change the title of this video, so we'll talk about 3.2.1. Is it a good thing? Yes, it is. The Marauder changes are still coming. They're changing Watchmen. I don't really play Watchmen. It's a terrible spec these days. It's just so horrible at the moment. Marauders in general are pretty bad, pretty harmless. We don't care about them. Don't mention Marauders much these days because, you know, very few people playing them. Very few people. You see them very rarely in groups now. Marauders at the moment. I think a lot of people have just abandoned the Marauder. I think a lot of them went to the Power Tech and the Sage. That's what happened. Certainly at the end of 2.0, they went to the Assassins. You saw a lot of them playing. You know they're Marauders. You know how they play. We've been over that topic. But yeah, we don't criticize Marauders as much these days because, you know, rarely see them in groups now. You know, it's all commandos, mercs, assassins is all we see these days. the odd power tech now, well, before 3.1.2, which they just ruined the power tech by taking away an ability. Doesn't matter how little an effect it has on us, but if people perceive it as negative, they're gonna take it out. You know, we're seeing less sages now as well. You're gonna see people rolling Flavor of the Month ults. That's one of the things that 12 times XP promotes. Anyway, we'll do a video on 12 times XP soon. So thank you for joining me for this video. I guess we'll retitle it now 3.2.1 and rant, I guess. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again soon, and goodbye.